All right, we're back for another show this week. We have a special guest. Before we get to the special guest, I'd like to welcome you guys all back to the AllStar MMA Pick Show. I'm your host, JHK. You can follow me at JHK MMA. And I am joined by, of course, my co-host, JSpec, the host. You see him on my right or left. I don't know for sure. And Mike's MMA Picks, he's down below. He's going to be our analyst for the week. He's phenomenal at what he does, so you guys need to really pay attention to what he says while the discussion rolls on. Today, man, we got UFC 284 happening in Perth, Australia. We'll be going through all the fights, making our picks, making our predictions. Throughout the show, we'll be utilizing the AllStar app and its picks option. Go into the descriptions right now and download the app to follow along and make your own picks. I will be making my picks live on the air throughout the show, and JSpec, he's showing his, you know what I mean? My record so far this year for every single UFC show, we had 2 UFC Vegas shows and a pay-per-view, UFC 283. My record for my picks is 26-10-1. The one is, of course, the Duho Cho fight from last week. JSpec is sitting at 22-14-1. So I'm beating his ass, kind of, just with respect. All right. So you guys download the app, play along with us, get your friends on the app, build a community. There's leagues, there's contests, there's prizes, and a lot more coming. So look out for all of that stuff. Now let's jump into it. UFC 284 to kick off the event. We got a featherweight matchup. Let's get the app on the screen. Here we go. Boom. There's the app right there. The featherweight matchup between Zubaira Tuhugov. I'm terrible with names. I will never get the names right. Versus Elves Brenner. I've heard rumors that this fight was going to be at lightweight, but I don't know. It says featherweight, so maybe I'm wrong. Let's get into Zubaira first. 32 years old, 25-1 record, 5-2-1 in the UFC. He has 8 finishes, 7 in the first round, 12 decision wins. Last win was against Ricardo Ramos in late 2021 after losing a split decision to Hakeem Dawodu. He's been off for around 15 months, and he's had a number of canceled matchups. On the flip side, you got Elves Brenner, 25 years old, 13-3 record. He will be making his UFC debut. 92% finishing rate, 11 submissions, 8 of them in the first round. Never been finished. He's also has 11 months between fights. Mike, what do you see in this matchup?
There is a discrepancy in skill set when you watch the tape on this specific matchup. Tuhugov coming in with a massive amount of UFC experience. Mr. Brenner coming in, a shoot-a-box fighter, somebody who's going to hunt for the submission early and often. The problem is this is a fight where Tuhugov is primarily a striker. He's going to be looking to exchange on the feet. You have Brenner, who's locked up, I believe, 7 finishes via armbar. The problem is I don't see this fight hitting the mat often, and that is Brenner's best shot at victory here. So if this fight plays out on the feet, which I expect it will, then Tuhugov should be able to get the better of the exchanges. I see Brenner trying to sell out at all costs to try to get this fight to the mat, and I don't think he's going to be successful. I was looking at there's a certain prop, a fight doesn't go the distance, is hovering around evens. I see this fight. I mean, look at the odds, and Tuhugov is a massive favorite, and you have to wonder the trip for Brenner across the pond here. He seems outmatched. It's going to take a horrific weight cut. Now, you brought up a great point, John, that Tuhugov has traditionally fought at 145 pounds, and now this fight is up at lightweight. So you have to wonder about that. But the pick for me is going to be Tuhugov, and I could see him getting this done inside the distance. I don't like laying massive amounts of juice, and he's, I believe, between -500, -600 favorite. So I'm going to be picking Tuhugov there.
JSpec, what do you see?
Well, kind of a snoozer for an opener. Let's be honest. The fans not liking the way the UFC frequently uses pay-per-view cards for debuting fighters. There's quite a few debuting fighters. Mr. Brenner is being part of that bunch. Tuhugov on the other side, 12 of his 20 wins are by decision. I don't see fireworks in this one. Fans don't see fireworks in this one. This is not getting the juices flowing as far as entertainment value as an opener goes. So with that being said, the fans have spoken though. Ran a little poll. Tuhugov getting the go-ahead. The support by the people, 71% for him. And I'm inclined to go the same way. My pick is Tuhugov.
Yeah, I'm gonna also take Tuhugov in this fight. Yeah, he's just more experienced, and he's only flying over from Phuket. He did his training camp down there. I think he was there with Taisumov, a name that's hasn't been around for a while. Taisumov's down in Phuket training. Actually, I saw him training when I was there a few weeks back when Volkanovski was there at Bang Tao, and and Zubaira was there as well. So his flight is not that long. I think it's a couple hours. He should be in Perth, ready to go. Veteran. When there's a veteran versus a newcomer, and the veteran is not that old and has that skill set, you got to go with it. I'm going to take Tuhugov. I think Tuhugov will get the TKO. I'm looking at the TKO. I think I'm gonna go with the second round TKO. I think Brenner can survive to that extent. Now let's go to the next fight on the cards. Here we go. Featherweight. There's a lot of featherweight matchups here on this card. A lot of featherweight matchups here. And the next featherweight matchup we got, let me get this fight on the card right here, is between Blake Bilder and Shane Young. Bilder, 32 years old, undefeated, 7-0 with one draw, and he's making his UFC debut. Contender Series winner, first round submission last year, 71% finishing rate, 4 submissions. Shane Young on the other side, a New Zealand native, 29 years old, 13-6 record, 2-3 in the UFC. He is sitting on a 2-fight losing streak, 77% finishing rate, 6 TKOs, 4 submissions. And he's coming off a really, really long layoff, 22 months. Mike, what do you see?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Mike. Sorry about that. We got a video. We got an interview.
Let's see it.
Let's see the interview with Blake. Let's see what Blake has to say about the fight.
My expectations are to go out there and get a finish.
Mm-hmm.
My expectations are to show people that that I'm the new kid on the block, I'm coming, I don't think they realize I'm not here to play around, it's like Conor McGregor said, I'm not here to partake either. I'm here to take over. My goal is to win, not to not lose. You know what I mean? I'm here to win. I'm here to stay. I'm here to, become pound for pound greatest. I want GOAT status. I want to go in and prove myself right over and over and over again.
Mike, what do you got?
Wow. Well, the young man doesn't lack any confidence. That's for sure. I enjoyed that interview, and thank you for the interview, John. I appreciate that. This is a very closely lined fight, hotly contested bout, and I believe it's going to take a mistake on one fighter's part here, and another fighter is going to capitalize on it. We could say that about just about any fight, except you look at Bilder, and he has a submission that you look up and down his record, and you watch how he fights. Oftentimes he's put in some tough spots, and then he sees an opening and he hops on it, as he did in his Contender Series bout, locked up a submission there. The problem is he's fighting against Shane Young, who fights like a man possessed, to be honest. And I feel bad for Young in a sense. When he was matched up against Omar Morales, it seemed like there was a massive size discrepancy in that specific matchup. You look at Bilder, CFFC champion, 14-0 considering his amateur record, if you were to combine amateur and pro fights. So he's going to be riding high heading into this matchup. I like Young's cardio here. I also think that the home crowd should be propelling Young to a certain degree. I think that you want to talk about, Rob, you brought up a great point about the curtain jerker, how it was lacking some pizzazz and some crowd enthusiasm, and that they could have kicked off with this fight. The fight, I'm looking at the odds. Fight doesn't go the distance is sitting at -140, so the odds makers are expecting this one to finish. I'm going to be going with Shane Young here. I think that he is going to do enough to get the victory, and the volume of Young should be the difference maker. You watch the way Builder fights, and it's almost like a I want to be respectful here. He's like a light version of Frankie Edgar. The way he maneuvers around the octagon, he's moving left and right and cutting angles and trying to get in and get out. But I don't think that's going to be effective here against Young. I think Young's going to beat him to the punch, and is going to be able to walk him down and eventually earn a TKO victory late in this fight. So I'll be going with Shane Young.
JSpec, what do you got on this one?
Well, this is one of those that does have, like we were talking about, what was lacking in the previous fight. It's got the people behind it. People are actually talking about this fight, given that it's the second fight on the card. And the poll that we put out there for the fans, thank you guys for participating, is split down the middle for this one, 50-50. Right, that's interesting. But we got people, shouting out some love for some of these fighters. I'm going to give a little read for Chappie Skims, giving us UFC debuts are tough, but El Animal looks pretty good. The Aussie crowd sounds wild, though. It should be a good fight. So he's already looking forward to this fight. And Zach likes MMA. Blake takes this one. Great debut fight for him, as I feel the layoff for Shane will be a factor here. And that's something I want to build off of too, right? The layoff things, it varies from fighter to fighter. We don't know if that's going to affect them or not. Some people say ring rust is real. Some say it's not. But if you go and watch the rest of JHK's awesome interview with Blake, he talks about something that rang a bell with me, and him dealing with his younger brother's suicide and still maintaining professional, unblemished professional record. These kind of intangibles are hard to even find in life in general, but now we have it open information from a guy who literally has to test what he's made out of every single time he goes into work. That sways me and sways the fans to go with Mr. Builder on this one.
Well, man, this is a tough one. This is a serious toss-up here, with Builder coming in as an undefeated prospect and Shane Young cutting his teeth already a few times in the UFC. He has had a long layoff, but he's tough as hell, man. The guy goes in there and he fights. Like, he will fight tooth and nail. He'll get clipped. He'll get back up and throw bombs. I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think this fight is going to be – I think Young's going to be able to lure a Builder into throwing bombs and kind of get away from, like, doing what he wants to do. Builder wants to go to the ground. He wants to get the submission, right? So I think Shane Young's going to, like, lure him into, like, some striking exchanges, and Young's going to be able to clip him. And I think he's going to swarm him. I think it's going to be a first-round finish for Young. I'm going to go with TKO first round. There you go. Beautiful, beautiful, right? Now, let's move on to the next fight in the strawweight division. But it's the only women's fight on the card, which is it's very rare to only have one women's fight on the card, right? There's so many women in the UFC. Just very odd to me. But anyways, Loma Lupumi, 27 years old, 7-3 record, 4-2 in the UFC. She has wins over Sam Hughes, Jinyu Frey, but every fight she has competed in the UFC, she has went the distance, win or lose. So you guys got to keep your eye on that. On the other side, you got Elise Reed, 30 years old, 6-2 record, 2-2 in the UFC. She has decision wins over Corey McKenna and Melissa Martinez, and both of her losses are via TKO. Before we get to Mike and his analysis of this matchup, we're going to play a snippet from both these ladies from previous recent interviews. Here's Elise Reed.
Yeah, she's obviously one of the best, if not the best, Thai fighter in the UFC right now, because it's just been her bread and butter. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. from Thailand, that's what you expect is her to do that really well. So she hits really hard. Her techniques are really fast. She moves forward. She's very aggressive. So it's definitely a fight where if I do my game plan the right way, it's going to be all gravy. If she gets her timing and feels comfortable and starts pointing out to the side like she did her last fight and here's the cheering from her corner, then I'm going to be in trouble. So it's, I think, two tacticians that have very unique skills that are very good at theirs, and we'll see who comes out the victor. I mean, obviously the plan is for me to make it look easy, but no, she definitely has some dangerous strikes and techniques. If I'm not awake and I'm sleeping because it's 6 a.m., I'm going to be in trouble.
I've been watching her. I've been watching her a little bit. I know she's a striker like me, and if she wants to stand with me, I'm going to stand with her. And if she wants to take me down, I'm going to go down with her. And no matter what, I'm going to do what it takes to win. For this fight, I'm not overlooking anything. I'm really focused on doing my best and winning. Of course, I want to get my first submission or knockout in the UFC. Every fight that I go into, I want that. But I'm not focusing on that. I just want to do my best.
Mike, what do you got?
Excellent. I was really impressed with Elise Reed's authenticity there. She was very honest, and I thank you again, John, for the interview. In this matchup, I think that the skill, the experience, the vet savviness of Loma Lupumi is going to really pay dividends here, especially in the clinch when these two lock up. I see Lupumi dumping Reed on her tuckus numerous times throughout the bout, frustrating her, getting the better of the exchanges on the feet, landing elbows at times. The only challenge I find when I'm breaking down this matchup is I go back to Lupumi's previous fight, and she had some real momentary lapses of judgment where she ended up giving up against Gomes. She stood up and walked away during an exchange, and Gomes tried to land a takedown in the middle of the round. And there were a couple of other situations throughout her UFC career. She seems to be doing very well, and then there are hiccups in almost every fight. But I will say this, only 27 years old. She's growing. She's a -300 favorite, so that's a very significant favorite in this spot. I think the experience of Lupumi is going to be on display. She's going to have the larger octagon, and I see her coming out on top. Now, is she going to get the finish? I don't necessarily believe so. I like her. I like Lupumi via decision. That's going to be my pick.
JSpec, what are the people saying?
The people are saying they're not saying it in the nice way Mike was saying. They're saying this is going to be a one-way ass kicking, and it's going to be for Loma. All right, Lupumi should destroy Reed in the people's opinion. All right. When you're doing MMA math, I believe they have a common opponent, and they're Sam Hughes, but they have different outcomes there, right? Loma got the victory, Miss Reed did not. So you play with the MMA math all you want there. Comment from Turbo McGee: both of these female fighters trade leather. Looking forward to this one. I hope it's a good fight. If Loma can get some takedowns, I think she will win all the rounds. And you know what? Touching on something Mike said, she is getting better. Loma is clearly getting better. Watch her fights every 2 fights at the longest. It seems like every fight she's getting a little better, but every 2 fights you see a huge chunk in her game elevating. And I think I'm with majority of the people supporting Loma on this one. Go Loma.
This fight is before I make my pick, I just want to give some thoughts. This fight is very interesting because you got Reed, who's like a Taekwondo-based fighter. She's clearly going to go in there and try to strike with her. I don't think she's going to try to wrestle with her because Loma, even though she is a Muay Thai fighter, she still goes for takedowns. She's still trying to wrestle you. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people don't expect that because she's just the first Thai fighter in the UFC. You know, they kind of get lost in all of that. And I think Loma's going to wrestle in this one. I think she's going to mix it up. I think she's going to, like she said in the interview, she's going to mix it up and she's going to try to find a way to win this fight or finish this fight somewhere. Do I believe she's going to finish this fight? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's you can't guarantee anything, especially with her history. But Mike, when you're talking about her mental lapses, right? She did speak about that after that last fight, right? About her, like, her mindset, you know what I mean, going into fights and even during fights, like how she was struggling with like depression and things like that. And maybe she's gotten over that hump. Maybe we're gonna see a different Loma in this one. I'm gonna go with Loma in this fight. I think she's has more experience and more tools, and she's getting better. I think she's going to get this decision in this one. I don't think she's going to get the finish. At least she's tough. And the people that finished her, they're like, who was it? Sajara Eubanks, who was like a bantamweight. You know what I mean? She fought a bantamweight in that one, right? So you got to give her the benefit of the doubt in that one. Now, let's go to the next one. The next fight coming up, we got another featherweight matchup. Jack Jenkins versus Don Sheinus. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm telling you guys, a lot of people are overlooking this fight. This is going to be a fight that's going to be pretty wild. Jack Jenkins, 29 years old, 10-2 record, making his UFC debut. He is a Contender Series winner. He won by third round ground and pound last year. 80% finishing rate, 5 TKOs, 3 submissions, but all of his losses are via submission. Don Sheinus, 31 years old, 12-4 record. Lost his UFC debut on short notice to a ranked Sadiq Youssef. So you gotta kind of throw that out throw it out the window. Don't even think about it. He's a Bellator veteran, 83% finishing rate, 8 TKO wins, 2 submissions, and he has 8 first-round finishes. Let's jump into some clips from my interviews with both men. First off, we got Jack Jenkins.
I reckon I'm gonna crack the leg again, to be honest. I reckon I'm gonna crack the leg again. I reckon I'm gonna crack the leg again, to be honest. I reckon I'm
Dude. Why is it not working?
I reckon I'm gonna crack the leg again, to be honest.
Is it frozen?
I don't want to be a one-trick pony, as Dana would have called. I reckon I'm gonna crack the leg again, to be honest. I know I don't want to be a one-trick pony, as Dana would have called, but I really do see myself finding that leg again. You know, it's always, people think that my leg kick is good, but my leg kick is good because my jab is good. So if I can get behind my jab and get him flinching on that left hand, that's what opens up the leg kick for me. So, you know, I'm going to get out there and try and get that jab connecting to his left eye. And once that happens, that can give me the opportunity to go to the leg and really bury home some baseball bat kicks. Hopefully snap a tibia. Yeah, be good to get a little bonus check.
Yeah, I think
maybe.
Yeah, maybe John's muted.
Yep. Dude, I've been doing this so long, and for me to go out there and be my best self with the right preparation, like I can't expect more. So my takes from him: good striker, good grappler. I think there's going to be holes where I'm going to be able to disrupt his rhythm, and that's my main takeaway for this. You know, make this dirty and ugly. Oh, I want to finish. I want to blow the fucking roof off the arena. I want to make a bunch of friends and fans in Australia, and I want to come home with a fucking extra check, then figure it out again, you know?
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
so I'm expecting this is going to be nothing of what I expected it. I'm expecting to run into even more troubles than I had my first camp. So I'm just trying to prepare the best I can for it.
Are we all back on the same page? You good to go, Mike? All right, go ahead, man.
Ready to roll. It was neither of those fighters pulled any punches in their interviews. One thing about Sheinus, he gets a full camp for this one, so that's always nice to see. And we've seen fighters come back with a full camp, even with Fugit last card, how he impressed a lot of people, took some damage early, and was able to turn the tide and win that fight. Here against Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins is a tough fighter who he's going to need space, I believe, to have a lot of success. The thing about Sheinus is he marches. Well, he doesn't march. He bum rushes you and bull rushes forward on a lot of his opponents. And that is going to play right into Jenkins's game. I think the first few minutes of the fight could potentially get hairy because you have a full camp Don Sheinus coming at you, somebody who's full with vigor and ready. He does have a legitimate submission game, and we've seen Jack Jenkins lose on the regional scene to some marginal competition, which is concerning. I have to be honest about that. But the Contender Series matchup, Jack Jenkins really he shocked not only me, but Dana White in the stands, who was caught off guard by the wrestling prowess and the grappling that was on display. I don't think these two, after the first few minutes, will be grappling heavy. I think that Jack Jenkins is going to be able to find the leg kicks that he's talking about. He's going to be able to frustrate Don Sheinus. And the longer this fight goes, I think a TKO victory is a real possibility here. I'll be picking Jack Jenkins to win inside the distance. That's going to be my official pick. But the Sadiq Youssef fight, man, those knees up the middle. Oh, I was feeling those from my couch. Those were brutal. But give me Jack Jenkins here inside the distance. TKO.
JSpec, what you got, JSpec?
All right, so this is another bit of one-way traffic. The fans not mixing their feelings at all for this fight. A whopping 92% of the fans lining up for the debutant, Mr. Jenkins. It's an interesting situation because both men are really going for their first UFC win. Obviously, Sheinus 0-1. I'm totally forgiving him for the Youssef fight, like 100%. Let's pretty much not bring it up except in a positive way if it ever is mentioned. The thing that is a little concerning for this fight is his camp, his whole fight situation, fight camp team, all that has recently been switched up. He was a former Glory MMA fighter, and if you guys don't know the story connected to that, the James Krause thing and the betting and all that. So, anyways, he's been kind of training near home, scattered training camp. So a lot of people are pointing at this. Oh, it's great that he has a full camp, but this camp is also piecemealed all over the place. With that being said, I have to support Mr. Jenkins on this journey.
Jack Jenkins, he's one of the best prospects coming out of Australia, especially at featherweight. That's why he's signed by the UFC. Don Sheinus, man, he's a wild man. He's a guy that, like Mike was saying, he'll bum rush you, and he's there to entertain. And I think Jack Jenkins is going to make a smarter play in this fight. I don't think he's going to go in there to entertain. I think he's going in there to win. That's his goal. His goal is not to go in there and make new fans. His goal is there to win and start a good career. This is basically a debut for both guys. I think Sheinus will go in there and be wild and crazy, and the crowd is going to go nuts in the first minute or two, maybe even the first whole round. But eventually, Jack Jenkins is going to take over, and I think he gets. I'm going to take Jenkins, man, and I think he gets a submission in the second round. I think that's what I'm going to go with in this fight. Now let's move on to the lightweight division. We got Jamie Malarkey taking on Francisco Prado. Malarkey, the hooligan, 28 years old, 15-5 record, 3-3 in the UFC. He has wins over Michael Johnson and Devontae Smith, 80% finishing rate, 10 knockouts, 3 submissions, and he has 7 first-round finishes. Francisco Prado, boy, is a youngster, 20 years old, making his UFC debut, undefeated, 11-0, 100% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 6 subs. But you guys got to go look deeper into the subs. He has 5 different types of submission wins, even a Vlad flu choke. Wow. Before we get to Mike, I'm going to go and play this clip from my interview with Jamie Malarkey. Here we go.
Man, I'm expecting a calculated and professional performance this one. Not to say that I don't want to get in a war. We know from my fights that I don't shy from that at all. So if it comes, it comes, man. But I'm expecting a more calculated Jamie Malarkey in there. I just want to show the levels and show how much my game is really improving, how much I can mentally keep it all together, and that's what you're going to see.
Mike, what do you see?
Wow. It's interesting. Maybe about an hour or so ago, I happened to share an example of a fighter who's capable of fighting a technical, clean game plan, but they have a tendency to get sucked into brawls. And Jamie Malarkey's that guy, no doubt. And I'll be honest, sometimes that brings out the best in him because he can take a punch. I mean, we saw the Volkanovski loss. That was, no one could have took that punch from Volkanovski. We'll get into Volkanovski's fight later in this podcast. But here, Prado, you have to wonder, he seems to be a great hammer, but how is he as the nail? If he doesn't get this knockout, or submission in the first few minutes of the fight, coming all the way across from Argentina, right? He's coming off over thousands of miles. I question his cardio. I question his durability. I question just about everything about him. I know he's undefeated, but only 20 years old. This is somebody who they haven't necessarily faced a legitimate test. And he's been crushing cans to a certain extent, Prado. So I'm going to be picking Malarkey here, but Malarkey, when you watch his fights, he can get caught and he can get into these heated exchanges where he doesn't have to meet. It doesn't have to happen. Also, in the Fares Zia fight, he did get reversed in that fight on the mat, which was concerning for me to watch. And Malarkey, I thought, was the better grappler in that matchup. Here, I'll be picking Malarkey. I think that the later the fight, he's going to really turn it on, and you'll see a levels situation. I see him getting the finish in either the second or third round, but give me Jamie Malarkey to win via TKO, John.
All right, JSpec.
Well, we got a situation of we know a lot about one guy. We have a good sample of his work in the UFC, and we have another gentleman who's shiny and brand new, undefeated record, all these finishes. The thing is, the fans are not buying it. They're not getting sucked into that undefeated record. Surprisingly, I thought the fan poll would be a little bit closer. 73% lining up for Mr. Malarkey, and I can understand why. Malarkey is, like Mike's pointed out, he's got a lot of skills. He's tough. He's beat some people, and more importantly, he only loses to real winners. The Zion fight, we want to forgive it. Turner, Jalen Turner and Brad Riddell, not jokes, So those are real losses that have quality to them. So with that being said, fans, all in one direction, basically. 73%, like I mentioned, all for Jimmy Malarkey, and I am not swayed by that shiny zero on Pedro's record, even though there's a part of me that wants to. I want to believe in the guy. I have no reason not to or go against him. I just think that Malarkey has proven what he is and who he is, and we just have a big old question mark for Mr. Prado. So good luck, Mr. Prado, but I'm signing up, and just like most of the people, signing up for Malarkey.
This is a scary matchup, right? Short notice. The guy's coming in and he's undefeated. It kind of reminds me of the RoboCop Bruno Ferreira situation, right? We don't know much about Ferreira, and we know everything about RoboCop. And then RoboCop goes in there, and everybody thinks RoboCop's gonna win, and then he gets sparked, right? It almost kind of lines up that way, but I'm not gonna fall for it. I think Jamie Malarkey is tough enough. I know Mike likes to say this a lot when he does his betting shows. You want to bet on guys, or you want to pick guys that are going to fight for you. They're going to fight to the death. And I think Jamie Malarkey is one of those guys. He will fight to the end. He is not going to go out easy. And I think he weathers the storm. I think Prado's going to come in there and he thinks he's going to get a quick finish or something like that. He's going to go for some wild things. Jamie Malarkey is going to weather that, and I think he wins the fight in the first round by TKO. I'm going with Jamie Malarkey in the first round TKO. I think that he's going to be able to, get in that talk of a bonus, so to say. Now, let's move to the flyweight division. We got Clayton Rodriguez versus Shannon Ross. Rodriguez, 27 years old, 7-2 record. He lost his UFC debut via split decision to CJ Vergara. He's a Contender Series winner. He won the fight via unanimous decision. He has a 71% finishing rate, 3 knockouts, 2 subs. Ross, 33 years old, 13-6, making his UFC debut. He fought on the Contender Series, but he fought with appendicitis, lost, and then got a contract. So Dana White must have saw something. I guess if you're sick and you still fight and Dana White knows and you lose, you can still get a contract on the Contender Series. You never know what Dana White's going to do. One thing that stands out is Ross. He does have some fights. He's undefeated for ACB, which, those killers over there at ACB when it was around. 62% finishing rate, 7-0, or 7 knockouts and 1 submission. Here is a clip from my interview with Shannon Ross. We'll get to that before we get to Mike's analysis.
Having appendicitis for a week, plus having it rupture the day of the fight, and then having the blood poisoning and all that sort of stuff. how much does that take away from your performance and the cerebralness and the all that sort of aspect of fighting? Fighting's a smart man's game. So when you're in that much pain and you're already down on the cards, it's like, did you really show who you are and how you can fight? Luckily enough, I put on a good enough performance to get Dana in the cage after the fight. It's obviously the first time that's ever happened in the history of a Contender Series, and he doesn't even usually go in there after some fights in the UFC. He doesn't even hand the belt over sometimes. So for me, that was massive. To get a call from him and Mick Maynard in the hospital and get that contract was obviously a dream come true coming out of the surgery, and a big shock to the system. And now we get to go do it fresh and healthy and really show where I'm at on this world level.
Great interview.
Yeah.
Great interview. I watched that interview a few times actually, and a couple of things impressed me about Shannon's game is his willingness to march forward despite what's coming back at him. And he was knocked out multiple times in that fight, yet still managed to put his best foot forward. And we talk about the appendicitis and everything that comes along with that. This is his first real shot, and he's taking on a Clayton Rodriguez, who is making the trip all the way over from Brazil. So he's got a long flight. Ross is going to have the crowd behind him. He's a gunslinger, not necessarily known for taking fights to the mat, Ross, and that is one way to cause problems for Clayton Rodriguez. We saw again CJ Vergara. Vergara really was a bit of a bulldog to be honest, and we've got our my bulldog. Everybody knows Big Pretty, my bulldog. So yeah, he kept coming forward, was chomping at the bit, and the challenge is Rodriguez wasn't really. It didn't seem like he was prepared to go 15 minutes hard. He came out hot, ran out of gas. You saw how talented Clayton Rodriguez is, both on the mat and with his kicks, his punches. He's huge for the 125-pound division. And I got to be honest here, I think that he has enough tools, the talent to take care of Ross. The one way that Ross, I believe, can win this fight is if Rodriguez unloads his clip and then Ross is still standing, which it could happen. And if Ross is still there, then this fight becomes live, especially if it's the third round and they're headed to the cards. I could see Rodriguez up 2 rounds headed into the third, but give me Rodriguez via head kick knockout. That's going to be my official pick.
Wow, JSpec.
All right. So this fight has got fans wondering what's going on with the UFC matchmaking. Why do they arrange cards like this? Here we are, a fight after the Malarkey scheduled fight, which people are into, and we're basically back to a debuter and a 0-1 fighter. It's a very interesting way to build momentum to a pay-per-view card. I'm just saying, fans of the sport kind of questioning it. What they are also questioning is how much does Ross really have in skill-wise? Is he just like a charity case because of what he did, which was amazing, fighting with appendicitis? Dude, it's hard to just fight. It's hard to fight if you were 100%. It's hard to fight in any condition. Get a little head cold, and it's appendicitis, dude. You're talking about like almost dead. Like you can literally die from that stuff. So I'm kind of shocked that 68% of the fans siding with Clayton Rodriguez, only 32% going with Mr. Ross. I think if more people look at the intangibles, might hit a lot of great things, but I'm talking from the fans' perspective, and I'm talking about the people who watch the Contender Series with us live. Every single one of us became Ross fans. All right. We all respect the fight game to a tremendous amount, and I'm not taking anything away from Mr. Rodriguez, but that is special stuff. Also, if you watch JHK's full interview, you're going to learn that he did a little training with the champ, Volkanovski. Part of his training camp was intertwined. And, as the overused phrase of this year goes, iron sharpens iron, or was that last year's phrase? Anyways, point being, Ross, he's got my attention. I know he's the underdog here, but the fans, 32% of them going with Ross. I'm all the way with Ross.
Man, I'm conflicted, man. I've known Ross for a while, man. I've been interviewing him since his regional days, right? And I watched him build into the fighter that he is now. And it's like we don't know. It's like it's undetermined. Like he's a mystery, right? Because the way he fought, or he had the appendicitis before the Contender Series fight, we don't know how good he is now. And Rodriguez, he's flying all the way from Brazil, and he's massive. Will the weight cut have a huge effect on him? Could he miss weight? You know what I mean? This is something we got to look at before the fight actually happens. If he does look really, really drained ahead of the fight, maybe he won't even be able to last to the second round. Maybe he's going to empty the clip, even if he does make weight. Man, it's a hard pick, man. It's a hard pick, but I think I'm going to have to go with the underdog, with the home crowd, boy. I think that crowd, that Aussie crowd, is going to put something into these fighters. You know what I mean? I'm not saying make the bet. Don't put some money on it. I'm just giving you my pick. I'm going to go with Ross. I think he toughs it out. I think he gets a decision. I think Clayton goes hard in the start, and then he kind of fades, and then Ross just kind of works him on the ground, mixes it up on the feet and gets the decision on this fight, in this fight. Now, let's go to the next one. Another featherweight matchup. This one is a banger. This one is a banger. Joshua Kulabao versus Melsik Baghdasarian, I think. Kulabao. 28 years old, 10-1-1 record, 2-1-1 in the UFC. He has back-to-back victories over Sungu Choi and Xiao Long, two totally different skill sets, and he was able to get in there and beat both those guys. He has a 50% finishing rate, all KOs. Only loss was at lightweight on short notice, and to who? Jalen Turner, who is a monster in that lightweight division. Melsik, 31 years old, 7-1 record, 2-0 in the UFC. He's a Contender Series winner. He won second round TKO, 71% finishing rate. He also has all knockout finishes, 4 first round knockout finishes, but he's on a 15-fight layoff. Before we get to Mike, I'm going to play a clip from my interview with Josh Kulabao. Here we go.
Oh, man. I try not to make it bigger than what it is, because at the end of the day, it's just a fight. But I think the Aussie crowd is definitely going to play a massive part in a lot of how the guys perform in Perth. So I think that it's going to be a good night. I think that the crowd's going to G us up, and it's going to be a very Brazilian type crowd, I feel. Yeah, man. I'm excited too, man. I'm really excited to test myself against a guy like him, and I'm excited as much as I am excited as a competitor to compete against somebody like him. I'm also excited as a fan to see how this fight is. Obviously, I envision myself smashing this dude in every which way, but I think it's still going to be exciting.
Mike, what do you got for this?
Ooh, this is going to be a great fight. This may surprise some. I'm going to be picking Kulabao here. He may not be the slicker striker here. Baghdasarian is the slicker striker, the fighter who wants to make this look pretty at range. But if you want to get dirty, Kulabao is willing to do that. He's willing to do whatever it takes. We've seen against Jordan, and there have been others who he will go to war. He will fight for your money. And if the fight hits the mat, I think he's the better fighter there too. And if the fight ends up against the cage and there's a clinch war going on, I think he wins that. But this is a very closely lined fight, and we've seen that Kulabao can get hurt at times, but I don't think that's going to be the case here. I'll be picking Josh Kulabao, and he makes a great point. Josh made a great point with the crowd. I think the crowd is going to be on their feet for this one by the end of the bout, and I'll be picking Josh Kulabao.
JSpec.
These are the kind of fights fans want to see. Fights where you don't have a whole bunch of leaning in one way or the other, where both guys, can have it and they need it. And everything is near even with these guys as far as, skill, winning, all that good stuff. So that's what people want to see. This is the kind of matchups that belong on a, pay-per-view building UFC card. With that being said, fans spoke their minds, and this was a close race, just like the bookies saw it. The fans have it nice and close. All right. So 52% going with Mr. Baghdasarian. and I'm probably butchering that name, but I'm sorry, so I've tried my best. And that's a real tight margin, 52%. That's 2% more than split down the middle. So that's the kind of fights people love. That's the kind of fights people sign up for. I'm just gonna have to disagree with the public on this one, just by a tiny 2% margin. I'm going with Mr. Kulabao.
Man, this is probably fight of the night right here. Fight of the night. It's going to be very, very close, like you guys said. But one thing that's a red flag to me is Melsik's coach, who is Ronda Rousey's old coach. And if you've seen all the fighters that come out of that camp, they do good at the start of their career in the UFC, and then eventually they hit a wall. And I'm feeling that this could be the wall. This could be the guy that could be the brick wall for Melsik. Kulabao, he's very good at adjusting as well in a fight, right? He's very good at, I believe, game planning as well, man. I think his team is good at like studying their opponents and seeing things that we don't see, like I don't see, you know what I mean, watching fights. And I think Josh Kulabao is good at going in there and executing. He's not the most gifted athlete, and he's not the most, like, his physique doesn't look like he's one of those, you know, he doesn't look like let's say who's a very gifted featherweight that looks beautiful, you know, like a I don't know. Give me an example.
Josh Emmett, for instance.
Yeah, he's not he doesn't look like a Josh Emmett, right? But he's a fighter, and he goes in there and he fights hard, and he's a very, very good striker. And I think, and he's very awkward in his striking as well. And I think he's going to find the angles. Melsik is a more traditional fighter, a guy that's more straight down the middle from my analysis. And I'm going to take Kulabao on this one. I think Kulabao is going to get the finish. He's going to pick up his first finish in the UFC. I feel like they're going to go to the round 3 in this one. I'm a little biased, you know what I mean? Like, I've been following Josh Kulabao for a few years now, and I've seen his growth. And a lot of the guys that are on this card as well, a lot of guys from the Australian, New Zealand scene, I do have a close connection to them because I've been interviewing them from their regional days to now in the UFC, and it's great to see, man. It's phenomenal to see. Now let's move on to the prelim headliner, which is the light heavyweight matchup between Tyson Pedro and Modestas Bukauskas. Pedro, 31 years old, 9-3 record, 5-3 in the UFC. He has 100% finishing rate. So 9 wins, 9 finishes, all in the first round. Isn't that crazy? All his finishes are in the first round. And he has back-to-back first-round finishes after that long layoff due to serious knee complications. Bukauskas, 28 years old, 13-5 record, 1-3 in the UFC, and he makes his short notice return to the organization. 85% finishing rate, 9 TKOs, 2 submissions. He has 6 first-round finishes. Mike, what do you see in this matchup?
Well, a common theme here is the knee injury. We saw Khalil Roundtree do a number on Modestas Bukauskas, his knee, and we've seen Tyson Pedro out for a significant length of time, and both of Tyson Pedro's opponents coming back. I mean, Harry Hunsucker, Ike Villanueva. I got to wonder, as far as Pedro's agent to get those fights booked. I mean, those were highlight reel knockouts. He lucked out there. Now he's coming in against Modestas Bukauskas, who is a flashy striker. He's gonna, but he's not really a finisher by trade, especially in the UFC. And Pedro, I'll say this, that he does go for the kill early, and he usually finds his shot selection off the bat. He's very economical, and he makes the most of his opportunities. Now, how long is that going to last? If this gets past the first round, or if it hits the second or third round, then I think there's a chance that Bukauskas becomes live. But I'll be picking Tyson Pedro inside the distance. I think that he does get this done. But I want to see where both of these fighters go from here. I'd like to see Tyson Pedro tested with a contender, because he is a very talented individual. We've seen on the mat early against Shogun, he was toying with Shogun at times, and then just, he dropped the bit. He fumbled the bag, so to speak. So give me Pedro inside the distance and by TKO.
JSpec.
Well, this fight has a lot of people in one direction, right? Winning the hearts and minds of the public is Mr. Tyson Pedro. I'm a little bit of a sucker for the redemption story. I love the first time didn't work out. You went back to the regional scene, retooled yourself, come back and shine. I know we have many good examples of that. The people are not feeling it with Mr. Modestas Bukauskas. It's just not the way the people feel. And the knee injury thing that Mike talked about, I think everybody's talking about, has even gotten the attention of our human X-ray machine, Kevin Nicholson. He says he's leaning Pedro because I think he'll use his kicks to keep Modestas honest. Modestas may come out more aggressive, feeling the pressure to win in the UFC. Either way, I'm excited for this one as both have made stellar comebacks from horrible knee injuries. And well, there we go. Thank you, Kevin Nicholson. You're the man, always breaking down injuries and stuff for us. So with that being said, it's like, the people do not want more Bukauskas in their life. Let's just be honest. And we are kind of a sucker for the guy who gets it down quickly and efficiently. Getting those first round finishes is what the people like, and I'm signing up with the people. I vote for Pedro. Is that too late to use that? Voting for Pedro.
I see Pedro going in there and spamming kicks. He's gonna spam kicks early, and he's gonna get his distance early. Like Mike said, he's very good at finding his shots early, and I think that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna use the kicks, and then he's gonna throw out the jab, and he's gonna throw out the right hand. The backhand. Sorry. I think Pedro goes in there. I think he gets the first round finish. I think he clips him. You know what I mean? And then he falls him to the ground, a club himself type deal. I'm taking Pedro submission first round. And he's very good at, locking up the Kimura, man. Very good at that. Now, let's move on to the pay-per-view portion of UFC 284. For the people watching right now, please, Kevin joining us. Appreciate you, Kevin, for your analysis. Give us some more thoughts and information if you can. Yeah, go in the descriptions. Download the AllStar app right now if you haven't, and make your picks as we go along the pay-per-view portion of UFC 284. To kick it off, we have a light heavyweight matchup between Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield. This is fireworks as well. Crute, he's sitting at number 11 in the rankings, 26 years old, 12-3 record, 4-3 in the UFC, but he's on back-to-back losses to Jamal Hill and Anthony Smith. Nothing to frown about there. That's high-level competition. Wins over Paul Craig and Mikhail Olegelek, and that's how I pronounce his name. 75% finishing rate, 5 TKOs, 4 subs, 8 first-round finishes for Mr. Crute. Alonzo Menifield, 35 years old, 13-3 record, 6-3 in the UFC, 2-fight win streak. He's working it right now. He has wins over Paul Craig. Both these guys have wins over Paul Craig. And Misha Serkinov, 92% finishing rate, 10 knockouts, 2 subs, and all his knockouts are in the first round. Mike, exciting matchup here. What do you got for us?
Man, you want to talk a redemption spot. I think this is a spot for Jimmy Crute to come in here and show us what he's made of. Now, he's been out for a significant amount of time. I believe 2021 was his last fight, the knockout loss to Jamal Hill. And we saw his striking defense. It was lacking there. He took some punches to the dome from the champ. In this matchup, the possibility is there to weather an early storm, but in his pre-fight interview, I paid close attention to these things. He said that he's going to blow Menifield's doors off. And yes, great point, Kevin. So he did get his knee completely rebuilt, and he had fought his entire UFC career with a torn ACL. We saw against Anthony Smith what he's capable of, even with a damaged leg, was able to take Anthony Smith down seemingly at will. He has the grappling here to cover Alonzo Menifield. Alonzo Menifield is, I believe, 35 years of age. So it's not like he's a spring chicken. I don't think if this fight hits the mat that it will be very competitive. I think that Crute has not only he's got a better gas tank. We've seen Menifield run out of gas very early in fights. I'm going to be picking Jimmy Crute here. I think that he is going to get this done either via submission or potentially a TKO victory, because he has slick submissions. He submitted Paul Craig, and then he also can throw hands. The Modestus Bukauskas knockout was one situation, but there have been others, Sam Alvey, etc., where he can throw, but the problem is his strike and defense seems to be an issue. Now, what has he done in the time off? He's had almost 2 years to contemplate what needs to be done. In the Anthony Smith bout and the Jamal Hill bout, I really strongly believe this. If he took this fight to the mat, those fights to the mat, he had a clear path to victory. He's extremely talented from a Brazilian jiu-jitsu standpoint, a grappling standpoint, a top-heavy positional standpoint, and also he has decent cardio when the going gets tough. He's able to really push through tough spots. So I'll be picking Jimmy Crute. Yes, there's a chance that he gets brutally knocked out. I see that. I think everybody sees that. I see a lot of people trying to pick Alonzo Menifield here, but I'm going to be picking Jimmy Crute as a redemption story. So give me Jimmy Crute for the victory.
JSpec.
Jimmy Crute gets all the love Alonzo Menifield wish he could have. And when I say that, the fans literally don't even care that Crute has lost. The same passion, the same feel for him, the same, yeah, go get him, boy, is still there. Zoe, on the other hand, every time somebody talks or picks him, from what I've heard, there's a but, there's a if, there's a maybe this could happen, if this or that. There's a blind allegiance to Crute that Menifield has just kind of unfortunately proven to us that he's hot cold sometimes. You never really know what Menifield you're going to get. You're going to get a marauder, or you're going to get someone who's kind of frozen by the lights. 59% of the fans giving their love to Mr. Crute. And I'm going to quote Mr. Steve Jeffs here saying Jimmy Crute weathers the early onslaught and defeats Menifield inside the distance by TKO. So that's how our Canadian friend feels about it. A lot of people feel that way too. I love me some Menifield. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But, and that's what you get when you talk about Alonzo Menifield. A lot of maybe, ooh. So for this one, I'm with Mr. Crute. Go, Jimmy, go.
Yeah, there's two options, right? You got Menifield, who is a bombarder in the first round. That's just gonna throw heavy, right? And if you zigged when you need to zag, it's over for you, like easy. You know, with Menifield, I think Crute's tough enough to weather that. I think he's gonna be smart enough to kind of keep the distance. He is light on his feet. You know what I mean? He is light on his feet. He can move around. A lot of people are probably concerned because he has had ligament issues and the surgery on the knee, that maybe his movement is not going to be back the same. I think his movement will probably be the same, or at least close to being what it was before. He was pretty athletic anyways. I'm going to take Crute in this fight. I think this fight goes out of the first round. He weathers the storm, and I think he gets it to the ground and gets a submission. Second round, I'm taking that for Jimmy Crute in this one. Before we get to the next fight, a heavyweight banger. This crazy fight coming up. We'll get to some of these comments. We got Well Rider 3001. What the fuck is up? What the fuck is up with you, man? Professor Chaos, up guys? What's up, Professor Chaos? Hype MMA. He's got a good question. Will there be an option to pick fights besides UFC? Yes, there will be. We're just starting with the UFC. We're gonna come back. We're gonna have many promotions. Just wait. This is still a thing in progress, and make sure you. And I seen you on the app, Hype MMA. I seen you making your picks. So everybody that hasn't downloaded the app, go in the description, download the app, and make your picks. Let's move on to the heavyweight matchup. Now let's see. Heavyweight matchup: Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. They put this together. You know why they put this together. Tafa, 29 years old, 5-3 record overall, 2-3 in the UFC. He has 100% finishing rate, all knockouts. He is coming off a long layoff, 14 months due to an injury and surgery and recovery. Parker Porter, 37 years old, 13-7 record, 3-2 in the UFC. He has wins over Chase Sherman and Josh Parisian, 62% finishing rate, 5 TKOs, and 3 submissions. Before we get to Mike and his analysis of this fight, I am going to play clips from interviews with both fighters. We'll start with Justin Tafa. Let's see what he got to say.
Yeah. It's been a long camp, but man, I mean, just this is like a redemption for me, you know, with from 243 or from that fight that I had with the Castro, my growth over the years, and I really want to showcase what I've been doing over the years and how I've matured as a fighter. So for me, like, not just pleasing the crowd, but just like honoring my coaches and then myself for all the sacrifices I've been doing over the years, man. And I feel like a care is coming, bro. I can just feel it.
All right, here's Parker Porter.
I think he's a good striker, but I think I'm better. You know, I think we're gonna go toe to toe, and I think it's gonna be great. I think the fans are gonna get their money's worth out of this one. He's got his style. You know, like he comes forward. That's similar to myself. Doesn't have a ton of head movement. You know, really just kind of like barrels forward. Has his go-to weapons, as most people do, myself included for that. But I don't think it's anything that I'm not going to be able to handle. Fireworks. I think it's going to be absolutely explosive. I don't think it's going to go the distance, but I think it's going to be an absolute banger. It definitely has potential for a fight of the night, or at least a fan favorite fight of the night all over it. You know, like we're gonna make people happy with this performance.
Mike, what do you think, man, after seeing those little comments from both fighters?
Yeah, that Justin Tafa interview was deep. You know, you talk about redemption, you talk about coming back from the Yorgan de Castro knockout in front of his home crowd, and it means the world to him. I believe he is the better striker here and also has the better kicks. The question is if he ends up on his back. We know Parker Porter is the better grappler here and also has the better wrestling, but can Porter at 37 years of age maintain a pace for 3 rounds? We're talking about, this is another situation where you've got a hometown crowd behind fighters, and I'll be picking Taha here. I think that he has the striking acumen to make his punches count when they need to hit their target. And that should be the difference maker in this matchup. I'll be picking Taha, and I understand there's a large contingency of folks on MMA Twitter who are picking Parker Porter, but I just can't do it. I think that this is a redemption spot.
JSpec.
Well, I am with the fans. Fans spoke loud and clear on this one. 67% giving their love and admiration to one Justin Tafa. When you watch the rest of that interview with JHK and Justin, you're gonna hear Justin talk about the surgery and the recovery. Now, it's one thing when you listen to fighters talk about a surgery and overcoming it, and it being an obstacle and a challenge and something, you know, that to overcome, had to surmount. But this is not the case with Mr. Tafa. Tafa talked about the surgery and rehabilitation like a blessing in disguise, like a dream come true, like much needed rest that he hadn't given himself in other circumstances. So he seems like a fighter, like not just mentally ready, but physically really ready for this moment, for this redemption run that we talked about. On the other hand, Parker Porter gets he gets none of the juices flowing. Let's be honest. Much respect to Mr. Porter, but the fans, you know, most of those people that Mike talked about, they're long shot hopefuls. Most of those people are looking at the betting situation on that. But I'm not here to disrespect nobody. I just want to say what the fans have to say about this. And basically, they're all expecting a knockout from Mr. Tafa. And one thing about Mr. Tafa that I also want to bring up, his fight with Carlos Felipe was arguably fight of the year. And it unfortunately happened in January, so everybody forgot it that year. But the point is, he fought an amazing fight against a guy who got busted for steroids, you know? So now that he's had his chance to get his body right, to get everything proper for him, I'm really excited with what a fully healthy Justin Tafa can do for us. So my pick, Mr. Tafa.
When people think about Justin Tafa, you know, they think of a brawler, but if you watch his fights, he does have some technical aspects of what he does, right? He is a kickboxer. He comes from a good lineage as well. And it seems like he matured a lot. Oh, actually not even fighting, just away from fighting and kind of like sitting back and reminiscing about what he has done so far. And I think he has the gas tank too. If Porter wants to like hang on him and clinch with them and try to play that game, I think Tafa will be able to do that. And he actually likes that. He has some pretty solid strikes from the clinch where he could like break off and throw bombs. And I think that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna throw bombs, man. I think he's gonna go in there and be super hyped. And his brother just got signed as well, and his brother's on an incredible run. Tafa gang is heavy over there in Perth. I'm picking Tafa to win this fight. I think he gets it done. I think he finishes the fight. I'm taking the first round. I think this one's gonna go heavy and hard early. Now let's move on to the next card. Next fight. Sorry. Before we get to the next one, we got a question here from Well Rider. He says, "Is Shane Young fighting on this card?" Yeah, Shane Young is fighting. We went over that fight earlier in the show. Just go back when the show's over and you get our breakdown of that fight versus Blake Builder. It's a great fight. So just go back, Well Rider, and see what we got. Next fight. Actually, no, not co-main event. Welterweight matchup. This one is interesting. They put this together. Randy Brown versus Jack Della, Maddalena. Brown, 32 years old, 16-4 record, 10-4 in the UFC, 4-fight win streak. He's rolling right now, man. He's probably hitting his prime. He got wins over Brian Barberena, Wally Alves, and Francisco Trinaldo. 69% finishing rate, 6 TKOs, 5 submission wins. Jack Della, 26 years old, 13-2, 3-0 in the UFC. He's riding a 13-fight win streak. 92% finishing rate, 11 KOs, 1 sub, 7 first-round finishes, wins over Danny Roberts and Ramazan Emeev. Man, this is an incredible fight, Mike. What do you see in this one?
Oh, man, this is one of my favorite fights on the card. I mean, you talk about the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. This is one of those fights that gets that going. Man, you've seen Jack Della Maddalena fight out of some really tough spots against Angelusa. And Emeev caught in some deep chokes. You know that Randy Brown is going to look to try to stay at range and land his patented jabs and have that right hand come behind. He's a fighter who fights well at range, uses his length well. But the problem I've seen from Randy Brown is he does not take punches well. And we know that if Jack is able to get it within striking range, and it's going to take a matter of time until he can do that, once he finds his range, then the tide should change rather quickly. I think that Jack, at some point, there'll be a moment where he starts to turn the tide, goes to the body, starts to catch Randy up top, and ends up winning this fight via TKO. But I will say that, yes, that Randy Brown has the much better ground game. His length on the mat, too, could pose some serious problems for Jack Della Maddalena. I'm not completely ruling out a Randy Brown submission because I believe that is a possibility here, but I do feel pretty confident in Jack winning this fight. Jack Della Maddalena. I've been waiting to say that all day. So I'll be picking Jack to win, and I think that he gets this done via TKO. He's one of the most he's like the prettiest fighter to watch from a stylistic standpoint, from a technical standpoint. His boxing is so crisp, the way he goes to the body, the way he doesn't headhunt, and he's patient, and his striking defense. So many other fighters in this division could take solace and spend time really studying his game, because you don't see too many other fighters like him. I mean, I'll be honest, John, you interview fighters all the time. Who in your eyes is similar to Jack? I know we're gonna get to JSpec, but who in your eyes has a similar striking acumen to Jack?
It's hard to say this early in someone's UFC career that comes in like this, that is so smooth with his boxing, like MMA boxing. There's not many guys right now that is good as. That's why this matchup so great, because Randy Brown has been molding his boxing for so many years now, and he's very confident in his boxing. And you got Jack, who is very good at boxing, coming in, and you got a boxer versus boxer, man. It's incredible. MMA boxer versus MMA boxer. JSpec, what do you got for us?
The fans are drooling for this fight, and they're all mainly standing in one direction. 62% for Mr. Maddalena on this one. Basically, the script, the story, what people are expecting is this to be Jack's moment, the moment that the rest of everybody, the hardcores are all on him already, as you guys already are, but the masses, the bigger push from the other groups of fans people are expecting that this is going to be Jack's crowning moment. And it very well could be. Like I said, 62% of the fans siding with Mr. Maddalena. I am slightly on the other side. I think Randy Brown is a massive problem and a huge step up in competition, a literal physical big problem. Like there's something people not talking about too much there. And last but not least, we got two guys doing great. But right now, if you were to really say it, Randy Brown's in like a moment. And I like seeing guys who are hot in stride, and Jack very well could be too. He's marching along, just killing people. This is one of those unstoppable force meets immovable object, in my opinion. I don't think the line is accurate, but that's whatever's. The fans want Jack. I respectfully have to disagree. I'm going with Mr. Brown.
Wow. Man, I've known Randy Brown. I've known Jack Della for many years now, both guys. I've interviewed both guys multiple times and watched them develop throughout the years and seen their skill sets improve. Randy Brown, man, he was one of the original looking for a fight guys. You know what I mean? And the original guys, none of them are around. Only person around is Randy Brown, and he's like on that top 15 verge, and he's looking phenomenal. The only concern that I have with Randy Brown in his last couple of fights is he likes to put his hands down, and you can't put your hands down with Jack Della. Jack Della is going to find the target, dude. Like, he's just so crisp. He's just so smooth on the feet with his hands and his accuracy. Just look at his accuracy with his body shots, with his hooks, with his straight punches, and he could cover distance so well. Randy Brown is so good and long, and he could fight from distance, but I think Jack gets in there somehow, some way, and gets the knockout. I think because I don't see Randy Brown going in there and trying to take him down. Even if he does take him down, it's hard to see that happen. You know what I mean? Like, how would Randy Brown go in there and take down Jack Della? You know what I mean? I see this fight as two strikers going in there and striking, and someone's going to get a bonus. It's either Randy Brown or Jack Della. I see Jack Della, so I'm going to take Jack Della, TKO. I think the first round. I think this fight is going to be quick. I think there's going to be a lot of quick fights if you notice my picks on this card so far. Now, co-main event, interim featherweight title. I'm happy that they put this together. I'm glad that they put an interim title up, because I think a lot of guys, and these are two of the guys that deserve a spot to fight for the interim title. There's a lot of people arguing about, like, why are they fighting for the interim title? It's like, yo, there's dudes waiting. You know what I mean? You can't just let them continue waiting. Let's put something on the line. And let's just say Volk is not able to go back to featherweight. Now you got a champion sitting there, right? Sitting there, and they could defend the title. Now, Yair Rodriguez, 30 years old, 14-3, 1 no contest. Record in the UFC is 9-2 with 1 no contest. That's that whole Jeremy Stevens debacle. He's got wins over the Korean Zombie, former title challenger, 2-time former title challenger, Brian Ortega, former 2-time title challenger, and Dan Hooker. 64% finishing rate, 6 TKOs, 3 submissions. Josh Emmett, 37 years old, 18-2 record, 9-2 in the UFC, and he's riding a 5-fight win streak. Wins over Calvin Kattar, Shane Burgos, and Dan Ige. 44% finishing rate, 6 knockouts, 2 subs, and 6 of his finishes are in the first round. Man, this is a phenomenal one. Mike, I know you can't wait for this one, huh?
Ooh. It's amazing to me how some folks could be hating on this card. I think this is a fantastic card. I think this is one of the best cards that the UFC has put together in quite some time. And I go back to Josh Emmett, his fight against Shane Burgos, where he tore his ACL in the beginning of the fight and kept moving forward. I was on Josh Emmett in that spot. And you talk about somebody who's going to fight for your money. He's that guy. Granted, he's going to be 38 years old in about a month or so, and his time is limited. He has a limited shelf life here at featherweight. He's shredded one of the best physiques in the featherweight division, and it's a testament to his self-discipline. But he also comes from a great camp in Team Alpha Male. Now you look at the other side of the fight, and you have Yair Rodriguez, who is getting better fight after fight after fight. I was at Yair Rodriguez's last fight. I was sitting with some of his family during that match, and they were telling me that behind the scenes, he's been getting better and better, and that I should look out against against Rodriguez T-City, that Ortega was in trouble, and I had to play on Ortega in that matchup. So they were not shocked when Yair came out and took care of business there. Granted, there was a shoulder injury. I know Mr. Nicholson can speak to that, but in this specific matchup, I have to lean towards Yair Rodriguez. I know that's going to shock some people here, but I think that when you talk about distance management, you talk about who's going to be able to get off at distance. Yair has a second layer that he's able to utilize with his kicking game that Emmett doesn't necessarily have. Emmett uses his kicks as a threat to get his right hand into the pocket and land his power shots. And I don't think that Yair's going to fall for that. I know Yair's been lit up like a Christmas tree against folks like Max Holloway and others, and Korean Zombie was doing a little bit of a number on him. But in this matchup, I think the longer the fight goes, you see Emmett struggle. And if we're being honest here, I thought that Josh Emmett lost his fight against Calvin Kattar, and that the Dan Ige fight was a very competitive matchup. And the odds didn't indicate that. The odds were saying that that Emmett should have been he should have won much more convincingly. So I'll be picking Yair Rodriguez in this fight. I think that there's the potential. I know that that Emmett tends to go to decision, but I think that Yair has the possibility to win inside the distance. And look at the way Emmett was busted up very badly against Calvin Kattar. He's taken a lot of damage recently, and you got to wonder. I mean, he's taken this fight across he's crossing the globe just as Yair is, but Yair is much younger, much quicker, much faster. Both of these guys have the will to win. Both of these guys have tremendous gas tanks, but I have a hunch that eventually Emmett is going to falter here late, and that Yair is going to really come to pour it on and potentially win this fight inside the distance. But I'll be picking Yair Rodriguez. It pains me though, because you do tremendous work with Josh, and his interviews are the most authentic, the best interviews I've heard. Everything he says is what he means, and I do believe he's going to give it his best shot. This is his moment at glory. He's been waiting for this moment his entire life, and this is everything to him. So he's going to leave it all out there. But I think that Yair's just going to be a little too much.
JSpec?
Well, I'm building off a couple things Mike said. The fans basically have a narrative set up. One, that the movement of Yair is going to be too much for Emmett, and that Emmett is going to have to set some kind of trap to be able to land his power, that Emmett has the power advantage that Yair doesn't have, and that the durability of Emmett is in question, not so much in the fight, but just total amount of damage that has been accumulated over his career. Mike mentioned it. I think a lot of people feel that way. On the other side, though, the fans speaking loudly that they want Mr. Rodriguez to win. 63% of the fans lining up for Yair. Got a couple things to read though. Counterpoints. Dave Fretz said the fight is absolute fire, it isn't getting its necessary due because the gravity of the main event. I can't wait for Saturday. You know who liked that reply? Mr. Emmett himself. Mr. Emmett himself knows that this fight is going to be a banger. He's ready for it. And you know what? If you look at Yair's fights, he like barely makes it out of them. Almost every single time the brother's leaving in a ambulance, he's legs swollen, broken, can barely walk. People talk about his fight against Max like he won the fight. It's a very interesting time where a man loses and he gets so much credit. But I have to go against what the crowd is saying in this one. I'm going with Emmett. I think he has what it takes to be an interim champion.
Man, Emmett, he's got a shotgun for a right hand. We've seen it many times, but he does go to the decision. The reason why is he sits back. He sits back and he loads up, but he doesn't get tired though. That's one thing that you got to remember. He doesn't get tired. He does take damage, but he sits back too much and ends up losing rounds a lot of the time. And then when he does land, it almost like sways the judges into putting the round into his favor, just because it seems like he did more damage in the round. And you don't know what the judges are looking for in this fight. That's the messed up part about this game, is everywhere you go, every event, we don't know what the judges are looking for. I see this fight going to the decision. I don't even see a finish happening in this fight unless Josh Emmett goes in there and wrestles Yair Rodriguez like Frankie Edgar did. If he pursues, because Josh Emmett's background is in wrestling. He went to college wrestling, right? Like that's his bread and butter, but we never get to see it because he has fallen in love with his boxing. Yair standing up is just more versatile, and he does have the knockout power, and he can hit from many, many different angles. And I feel like if it stays on the feet, Yair's going to win the decision. It's going to be hard for Josh Emmett to knock out Yair Rodriguez. You know what I mean? And he doesn't kick that much either. So it's not like he's going to be able to fake with the kicks, like a Max Holloway or someone like that. Man, I wouldn't be shocked if Emmett goes out there and just blows Rodriguez's head off and becomes interim champ. But logically, making a pick, I think Rodriguez gets a 5-round decision, and he uses that versatility on the feet. But who knows, man? We've seen wilder things happen. We've seen guys bring out new skill sets or things that they haven't shown in the octagon, from time to time. But yeah, I'm taking Rodriguez. I'm gonna go for the decision for this one. Now let's move on. Before we move on, we got a little comment from Will Ryder. He says, I wouldn't bet on this fight personally, but yeah, it's a tight one, man. It's a super, super tight fight right there. Here we go. Main event time. We get a super fight. This is legit a super fight. Not just like Dana White and the UFC is telling us it's a super fight. This is a super fight. We got pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2. Makhachev versus Volkanovski. Makhachev, 31 years old, 23-1 record, 12-1 in the UFC, 11 fight win streak. He's got wins over Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker, and Army Sarukian. 65% finishing rate, 11 subs, 4 TKOs, 9 first-round finishes. On the flip side, you got the challenger, the featherweight champ, Alex Volkanovski, 34 years old, 25-1, 12-0 in the UFC, 22-fight win streak. Wins over Max Holloway. 3 wins over Max Holloway. Not 1 win. 3 wins over Max Holloway. Korean Zombie and Jose Aldo. All phenomenal. All-time greats at 145. 60% finishing rate. 12 TKOs and 3 submissions. And his only loss as a professional was at welterweight. Just let that sink in. His only loss as a professional was at welterweight. Before we get to Mike and his analysis of this phenomenal matchup, we will play a snippet from my interview with Volkanovski.
I'll get a bit more technical with this, where usually when I'm fighting other guys, I know their chances are more likely to be a puncher's chance, if you get what I mean. So I've got more of a safe net on the feet. I can't take too much. I'm the type of champion or fighter that I will take some risks, I do put a bit of pressure. I do attack. I do throw a fair bit of volume, but I still have a bit of a safe net around it. With this one, I will have a safe net, but I need to capitalize on the feet. I can't sit there and just take my time and be real patient and be so worried on the feet, because I don't want to let rounds get taken away from me. I need to capitalize, and that's why I feel like I get a finish. So I've never really had to capitalize on the feet as much as I want to now. So I feel like I'm getting the finish, believe it or not. So I feel like it's going to be more of a stand-up battle.
Mike, what do you got for us?
Wow. This is a tremendous matchup, and I stress that because Volkanovski could have stayed at 145 pounds. I honestly don't think that he's completely cleaned out the featherweight division, but one thing that really impressed me, and I've had a tremendous amount of success backing Alex throughout his run here in the UFC, is that he wants to test himself, and he isn't just testing himself against an ordinary talent. He's testing himself against one of the greatest fighters at 155 pounds, Islam Makhachev, who he has the ability to completely stifle opponents. And Dan Tom spoke about risk control, and I believe that is a clear something that I'm sure Alex is aware of headed into this matchup. He's going to have to make his moments count. The striking, I believe there is a massive disparity here, that Alex Volkanovski is a elite striker, and I do not think that Islam Makhachev is an elite striker. I don't even think his striking defense is par with the lightweight division. I think he loses most striking matchups if he ends up trading with them. The problem is his grappling is beyond a difference maker. The Sarukian fight, there have been so many other fights where he just renders his opponent, their game is useless. Now, I do believe that Volkanovski is going to come in here on home turf, and he's not going to give up on himself. The one thing I every time he makes the walk to the octagon, I pay attention to what he says into the camera, and it's always something to his fans, like I've got this in the bag, or I'm doing this for you. And then he goes out there and he does it. He's an incredibly intelligent fighter. He's able to have a plan B and a plan C. Now, what plan C does he have here? He specifically spoke about not losing rounds and not giving away rounds. He knows he's going to have to make every moment count on the feet when they're standing. This is a very, very close matchup, and the odds are very wide. So I see a lot of people on the Twitter timeline saying that Makhachev is going to come in here and smash Volkanovski. I do see this fight ending inside the distance, one way or the other. I think that eventually the size could potentially make there could be a difference in the size that ends up swaying the fight. Just that lightweight and featherweight, that's a big difference. 10 pounds when you're 145 pounds versus 155 pounds. And we know Makhachev, he drains himself tremendously to make that limit. So this may come as a shock also, but I'm going to be leaning and picking the underdog here, Alex Volkanovski. I think that the lack of striking, lack of attention to detail in the striking department on Makhachev's side is going to come back to haunt him here. I know he's an incredible grappler, one of the best, and one of the best obviously at the division, but I think he could win a lot of fights at 170 pounds too, Makhachev. So I think he gets caught here. I think he gets caught and dropped, and I think that that Volkanovski shocks the world. I think that might be a bit of a hot take, but I got to go not only with my gut, but what I see in the tape too, the just huge discrepancy in skill set regarding the stand-up and also the game planning from Volkanovski. I think that's going to be in effect here. It's either going to be a Makhachev submission or a Volkanovski knockout, and I'm going to be leaning Volkanovski knockout. I apologize for being long-winded, but this fight really deserves attention to detail, and I try to give it that.
Oh, appreciate it, man. JSpec, what do you got?
Attention. That's what this fight's getting. Is getting from the fans, is getting it from us. A couple comments left by the fans. So thank you guys for participating in the fan polls on Twitter. Addy Fanart says, Islam is going to be surprised by Volk's cardio and stamina. Alex is going to be amazed by Makhachev's level of control on the ground. Volk wins by decision because he's going to be crafty. We have another one from Michelangelo. Volk's going to have to utilize his footwork and constantly gain space from Islam while trying to fire off strikes without having Islam catch him in a clinch. the work rate he had in the Max 3 fight, he's going to have to double that versus Islam. These are the kind of things people are saying, bringing up. I want to bring up Spawn's point. People forget Volk fought at middleweight a few times. That being said, I think Islam takes it. Well, all right, there we go. We got some straight from the people's mouths, what they feel, what they think about this fight. On the other hand, I think there's a little bit of narratives that have been said that I'm going to say for other people. One, that Makhachev probably can't finish Volk. And this is like a healthy mystique growing around Volkanovski. He can't be knocked out. How are you going to knock him out? You can't even touch him. He can't be submitted. Brother's covered in oil. I mean, he was deep with that Ortega escape that everybody lives on forever. So it's like, how is Makhachev even going to win? That's one part of the story. But the other part of the bonus for Makhachev is he should be stronger, right? Naturally, the bigger man, naturally competing at a bigger weight classes throughout his career in general, besides Volkanovski's tour of weight classes. Now, on the other side, Volkanovski's in a no-lose situation. No lose. People basically looking at this as a free chance for Volkanovski to go up a weight class, grab a belt, get all the accolades with it. But if he loses, it's not going to hurt his prestige at all. It's not going to bum out Volkanovski at all. So I feel like this script that doesn't match the betting line at all. I feel like the story is Volkanovski should win, according to the people's take. Anyways, 54% of the fans siding with Mr. Volkanovski to be double champ. There we go. Wow. So my vote is also with the people, just by a little bit. I'm not too confident in this one. Volkanovski.
Man, I look at it like this. If you had $1 million to put on this fight, who would you put your money on with the odds and all of that? And let's say there is no odds. You're just picking them straight up. Like, there's no odds. You pick them straight up. You put $1 million, you win $1 million. Whoever wins. I look at it like that. And I'm thinking 9 out of 10 times you have to go with the favorite. You have to go with Islam. You have to go with the bigger man, the guy that hasn't lost a round, the guy that doesn't take much damage, the guy that's just stellar at what he does. He's just specialist. Like, people talk about specialists. Islam is a specialist, just like Volkanovski is, right? Islam's a specialist at getting guys to the ground and keeping them there and just blanketing them, right? And then making them, or even letting them make mistakes so he could take over and stop them, right? That's what he does. Islam is phenomenal at that. And man, it's crazy that the UFC is allowing us to have this fight. You know what I mean? I love it. I love that they're doing it. If there was money on it, like $1 million, I would have to take Volkan. I would have to take Islam. I would have to take Islam. It's just the proper bet to make. But there's no $1 million on it. There isn't. So who am I taking? I love the underdogs. I love it. And I could see, like Mike said, I could see Volkanovski being able to weather the storm. The man is just undeterred. Like, his goal is to be the best. His goal is not even the belt. I don't even think he's talked about winning the belt. I think he's just talked about beating the best guy out there and like continuing to chase greatness. I don't even think he's even talked about like, I want to be, like, of course the winning the belt, the lightweight title is going to lead to, greater things, but he just wants to be great. I mean, he just wants to take on the challenge that nobody wants to take on. Even Islam said, nobody has called me out. Only person that has called me out is Volkanovski. Volkanovski is a man that is on a mission, right? And how could you not back that, right? And like I said, if there was $1 million on it, I would take Makhachev. Don't get me wrong, but you got to back the man with that story, man. He is who he is, and I've had the opportunity to been around him a few times. I've had the opportunity of seeing him train. I've had the opportunity of grappling him, Volkanovski. And just meeting the person, you know what I mean? The guy, him being around his family. I've been around all that, you know what I mean? I've seen that. And it's hard not to like him. It's hard not to support a person like that, right? And what he stands for and what he's done for the sport and what he's doing for Australia and all of that stuff. So when you go look at that pick, man, and this is just a pick off, I guess, bias, I'm going to have to take Volkanovski, and I'm going to have to take knockout. I'm going to take the 3rd round. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think, look at that right there. People, look at it. Look at that right there. Volkanovski. He's sitting at 34%, and 65% or 66% of people on the app are taking Makhachev, and 67% of the people are picking submission, and they're all picking fourth round. 50% of them are picking fourth round. You look at the statistics right there on the app. Everybody, go download the app. It's in the descriptions. Make your picks. Join us. Let's get to some of these comments before we get out of here. You know, we got a little bit of time. We got Well Rider Volk via heel hook. Yeah, I put up a post. I think yesterday I said, you know, what would be more crazy? Would it be a spinning back fist knockout by Makhachev, or a heel hook submission by Volkanovski? And I would love to see either one. That would just be crazy, right? Just something that's out of the ordinary. And I even told Volk when I interviewed him, because I actually got a chance to fly down to Phuket during this training camp when he was in Phuket. And that interview was me sitting in the room with him after a training session, talking about the fight. And I told him to his face during the interview, like, I don't know what to expect. I'm expecting the unexpected. Everybody's thinking this will happen or that will happen, but I think something crazy will happen. And that's when he said all of his breakdown about the fight. Yeah, it's crazy. Well Rider and Zax. We got Omar. That dick riding is crazy. Classic AllStar page. And when Islam shits on him, what are you talking? I just told you if I had $1 million on the, I would pick Islam to win 9 out of 10 times. This dude, Omar, why you gotta like this? It's funny. It's funny that you'll say you'll pick the guy, but then you're dick riding if you pick another guy. It's kind of funny to me. Anyways, what's going on? Am I frozen again?
Slightly frozen.
We hear you though.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
We can hear you.
All right, so we got some other comments here. If Volk beats Islam, he's top 10 all time in my opinion. Let's get to that, Mike. If Volk goes in there and handily defeats Islam, right? And there's no even like even like Dana White even entertaining a rematch. Where does that put him in that GOAT conversation?
Right, I would put him right up there. I mean, you look at the guy; he's beaten Max Holloway 3 times. He's beaten Jose Aldo, and then if he moves up a division and wins the belt against a dominant Dagestani grappler, yeah, he's one of the GOATs, if not 100%.
JSpec?
You know, I don't want recency bias to get all in my vote here. I would put him in the top 5. I want to leave argumentative room. I also want to see if he'll defend either or one or both belts, because all of that changes it. I mean, that to me, those scenarios move you from 5th to 1st. So who knows? But yeah, I would give him 5th all time. Just because recency bias, I don't want to put him too high. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a better spot.
If Islam wins this fight, where does he go? I'm thinking he wins this fight, he's going to go chase after that welterweight title. This is my view on what's going to happen next.
So just a constant exchange of champion versus champion, and everybody trying to grab 2 belts at the same time.
I'm here. I'm back. Here we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Got
sir.
you.
All right. So I was saying, you know, what's next for Islam? He goes in there, completely destroys Volkanovski. You know, what's next for him? My prediction is the man is also chasing greatness. He'll become the pound for pound number 1. He's a lightweight champion. He's this unbeatable force. He's got the force field around him. I say he calls out the welterweight champ. I say he says, I'm going to London for the Usman Edwards fight. Whoever wins that fight, I'm going to fight them, and I'm going to go chase after double champ status. Why would the UFC not allow him to do that? They're allowing Volkanovski to do it. You know what I mean? I understand he doesn't have no title defenses and all of that stuff, but he's pound for pound number 1. There's a reason why you become pound for pound number 1, right? Is to go out there and do things that people don't want you to do. Mike, what do you think of what's next for him?
No, I agree. He would deserve that fight, and I would be interested in seeing what the odds end up in that fight. Also, when you talk about Volkanovski, I think Ivloev and Topuria, there are a few fighters down at featherweight who are contenders down there as well too. So both of these fighters have unfinished business. I mean, 155 also. I mean, if you rebook the Sarukian fight with Islam. I'd like to see that as well too, because the last time they fought, Sarukian was what, like 23 years old, something like that. So this both, there are so many opportunities out there. And the other thing is Edwards. I mean, he's not a perfect fighter. We've seen Usman. He's proven that he's not a perfect fighter. So anything can happen on any given night. And we are grateful for this Saturday in Perth. I wish I could be there, to be honest. That's something I had planned to fly out there with my family for the event, but it just wasn't meant to be this time around. I'm really looking forward to it.
What about you, JSpec? What do you think happens if Islam goes in there and completely just wins? You know, I mean, he retains the title. What does he do next?
You know, I think it doesn't help quell the haters. I think he's gonna have to, not have to, but the people are gonna want to see him defend his weight class, defend his belt against a proper, and not taking Volkanovski is not a proper opponent, but you know what I'm saying, a member of that weight class established. I feel like Islam is always going to have to, unfortunately, prove shit to us before everybody really goes, yeah, go fight whoever you want to fight, whatever matchup you want to fight. The thing is, maybe just call me like, I don't know, what do you call me whatever you want. But the point is, I think that champions should defend their belt 3 times before getting to jump to another weight class and take on another belt. That's just my personal opinion. I think there should be 3 defenses, and then you're allowed to go mess up other weight classes if you're that great. So that's my take.
All right, let's get to some of these comments. We got Omar again. He says Islam's grappling pressure is too elite. We agree with you. We do not disagree. Everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows that his grappling is legit. Let's see, Zach. You literally can't pick against Islam without people bitching. That is definitely true, Zach. Zach, you're right, man. You can't, if you pick against the favorite, the guy that everybody expects to win, you know, the people start getting sour about it all the time. Hype MMA, he says he'll become top 3 GOAT. That's a possibility. You know, that's your opinion. Dylan G, what's your fight of the night? Mine's Kulabao Melsick. Yeah, go earlier in the show and listen to our breakdown. We also said that Kulabao Melsick. Brown versus Jack Della. Those are probably 2 of the main fight of the nights coming up, you know, outside of the co-main and the main event. Omar again, he says, that being said, if Volk wins, he's top 5 all time. Hey, look at Omar. Omar's getting both sides of the story. That's cool that you're showing some unbiased, so to say. Let's listen to the one. I love these guys. These guys are the best right here. Look at them. Islam is gonna make it look easy yet again. That's most likely gonna happen. There's a 90% chance. That's why he's the favorite. That's why he's the lightweight champ. Let's go, Islam Makhachev. Yes, we said that earlier. All these all-stars are. Thank you for calling us all-stars, because you know there's not many places you could go where you call people all-stars. Our losers were losers, okay? And this Chinese guy, first off, I'm not Chinese. I don't know why you think I'm
He's
Chinese.
Korean. Get it right, motherfuckers.
Yeah. And is the biggest hater of Islam and Dagestanis of just you. These are the best commenters. You know why? Is because they bring the algorithm up for this channel, and they get people involved in the comments, and they watch all my videos, and that's why I love you guys, Islam fans, Habib fans. I love you guys because you guys watch everything that I do and comment on all the posts, and I read them all. I do read them all, and I enjoy your analysis of the fights. But usually when there's a huge favorite, and Mike, you know that, and you've watched a lot of interviews, and JSpec we've seen a lot of interviews, that usually when there's a huge favorite, you don't ask why the favorite's gonna win, because the favorite is the favorite for a reason, and we know, right? You always ask, why do you think the underdog will get in there and get it done?
Path to victory.
Yeah, the path to victory. And a lot of these guys think that means that I think Islam is going to lose. I don't think Islam. I told you, if I had $1 million, I'm going to bet on Islam. Whale Rider, Volk is the GOAT if wins. Marcus, I think Islam can fight at 172. I think Islam can fight at 172. I think he could compete at 170. I think he could become a top 5 fighter at 170. He's a monster. He's a beast.
Cuts a lot of weight too.
Yeah, cuts a lot of weight. Professor Chaos, Darius can't be denied after he beats Charles. Yeah, man, Darius is he's a phenomenal talent as well. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's he's a serious threat to everybody in that division. and he's more well-rounded than a lot of guys. And Benil deserves a shot, and Allen for Volk. I can't disagree with that, man. And we got Michael Panza. I can't definitely see Islam moving up to 170 eventually. Omar, he has a question for us. We'll go to you. Do you think Islam being southpaw gives Alex any problems? Mike, that's a perfect question for you, man.
Yeah, I think he's going to be prepared. I think Alex's team, they're top notch. They'll be ready. And you may see Islam trying to throw feints to get Alex to overcommit, and then that would be a way that Islam ends up taking the fight to the mat. So I don't think it's going to give him any problems. I think the feints could be a potential issue, but then you have to wonder, Islam, his striking on the feet. I'm not impressed with the striking on the feet. I know people saw Charles Oliveira get dropped by Islam, but to me that didn't tell me much.
Yeah, Islam is, if you look at prior performances and you compare their striking, Islam is still developing his striking. You know what I mean? He's still finding his footing with the striking to see what is the most effective way. He's working with Javier Mendez. He has phenomenal coaches, man. Like, it's not like he doesn't have phenomenal coaches, but he's so good at one aspect of his game that's kind of like his backup plan.
He's a specialist. Like,
yeah, it's a specialist. Yeah, it's a specialist. Volk as well. You know what I mean? Volk is a specialist in the striking. And the crazy part is he started off as like a wrestler type fighter that threw haymakers and then developed into this like proficient, technical, like in some ways, like a flawless, like malleable, he can adjust so well. You know what I mean? Like just game planning, fight IQ, just seeing things, and his physical attributes actually help for the divisions that he fights at too, because he's much shorter but has a longer reach than all the fighters that he fights.
He has a reach advantage in this fight.
Exactly, right? And he has the short legs, which allow him to be his movement. I think it helps because he has shorter legs. Like he can skate. Like when you watch him fight, and especially in the Max Holloway fights, it seems like he's on skates. Because he's like he kind of glides around, you know what I mean? He hits you from the left and he moves to the right, and it's side to side, up and down, backwards, forwards. It's just wild, man. And I got the opportunity to learn some of that style, you know, from a coach. And when I was in Thailand, and man, it's hard to do. It's just hard. Like it's just like the movement and just trying to understand it and get to it.
The thing that impressed me most about Volkanovski is when he decides it's time to strike and commit and make his commitment, it's very difficult for opponents. They're not prepared for it. I'm not sure how he's able to do that, to be honest, but I don't think the rest of the division has caught up with that. And I don't think Islam's going to be prepared. But then the question is, how long is this fight going to play out at distance on the feet? It may not at all. I mean, he may get grounded and then he may get ridden for multiple minutes. Rob, you were going to say something?
Oh, I just want to jump in on this love fest going for Volk, because I think the thing that you can put on his labeling is he's a neutralizer. And that's an aspect that you find in all the all-time greats. All right. So when you look at other fighters, you go, oh, he's got a great trainer, he's got great power, he's got speed, or this or that. When you talk about Volk, he's a neutralizer. He takes whatever the hell you're supposed to be good at and shrinks the possibility of you winning by that to zero. And all-time greats like Anderson Silva did it, and many others. So when you have a guy that can do that, the weight slowly becomes not as big of a factor. I'm gonna borrow an old phrase from boxing, though. On the other hand, a good big man beats a great little man, and that's all that has to happen. That's all that has to happen in this fight. So, you know,
Islam's this, when you really look at it on the flip side, Islam's kind of like the same way, just in a different, he just has a different avenue, right? He's kind of like Volkanovski, but he just has a different avenue of what he does. It's just he's great at what he does. Volkanov's great at what he does. You know, they're in two different weight classes, and we get this rare moment, because let's say if Conor was in Volk's position and he's moving up to fight Islam, we would be saying Islam clear as day. Would you be saying Islam as clear as day?
Yeah.
From like what we saw of Conor back in the day, and moving
Absolutely.
up.
Yeah, you got
Absolutely.
one shot chance for Connor at the time. I mean, but it would be like plus 300, plus 400 odds, I would say, right off the top of
Exactly.
my head. Yeah.
So it wouldn't even like be as close as what people are talking about now, because you see like a lot of people, and I know a lot of emotions go into it as well. You know what I mean? You like the underdog, you like the story, you like the man, you know what I mean? And you always like to see unbeatable force fall eventually, right? And that's what position that's the position Islam is in, and that's what makes this fight so great, man. And a lot of people think that we're hating on Islam. We're not hating on Islam. Islam is phenomenal. He's a phenomenal talent. He's going to go down as one of the best ever. Habib as well. But they're all cut from the same cloth. They just have different avenues of how they execute, but they're all cut. They're all great. You know what I mean? They all are. And we get to see that actually happen. I would have loved to see Habib fight what's his name? Alex. That would have been a great fight to be
Wow,
to be
yeah,
honest
that
with
would
you.
have.
And I think Islam has a better, like, if you compare Habib and somebody in the comments was talking about Javier right here, Matthew Batina. He said Javier Mendez said Islam is better than Habib. And I've heard many people say that. Even I interviewed Mike Swick. Mike Swick, a longtime veteran of American kickboxing, was there when Habib and Islam first got to American Top Team and saw them all develop. And he said the same thing. It's like, if there's anybody that's more well-rounded than Habib or better than Habib, it's Islam. And that's true. Like, how could you argue that? You know, I mean, Islam has shown that in the cage. Let's see some of these other comments. Let's see. We got Antoine Willis. Really enjoyed the breakdown Austin show, guys. Appreciate you, Willis. Antoine Willis, man. Yeah, man, we're gonna do these every week. So come along and comment. Let's see. Marcus Mustard. Hell yeah, Islam can be a Islam complete neutralizer. He's like the equalizer, you know, like that movie with Denzel Washington. The one, my man, you guys hate them. It's clear as day. I have seen millions of videos. Number one, we don't have millions of videos. I don't know how to say millions of videos. Marcus, Khabib is same age as Volk. That's pretty wild, right? Khabib is the same age as Volk. Man, I love this. It's gonna be an incredible weekend. I was gonna go there. It just was gonna cost too much money for me to get there, and I'm taking care of some things at home, and I couldn't make it because it's a historic moment, man. Right there, that card is a historic card. Islam versus Volkanovski. But I got to go to Thailand for 2 weeks. I got to see Volkanovski train a couple times, got to interview him and get the vibe from him. And yeah, it's gonna be a wild weekend in Perth. Thank you everybody for joining us. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, and make your picks along with us. We'll be back next week for another pick show on Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. But before that, I'll have Dan Hooker on the post-fight show on Sunday morning, maybe. I don't know. It's Monday over here since Dan is also in New Zealand. Dan just broke his hand, so he can't fight Jalen Turner. Sad story. Sucks to see that happen, but what can you do? Thank you, everybody, for your time. Yeah, man, it was, man. Thank you, everybody. See you guys next week.